He looked away for seconds. A stranger rescued the millionaire's daughter. Alexander Hart's name echoed through the city. He was the CEO of one of the most powerful corporations in the country. His days were consumed by meetings, contracts, and never-ending deadlines. The glass walls of his office offered views of skyscrapers he practically owned. But those walls also trapped him, keeping him away from what mattered most. To the world, Alexander was untouchable, a man of steel, ambition, and discipline. Yet, behind the boardroom mask, there was a father who carried a soft spot no one else ever saw. His heart beat fastest, not during stock market victories, but when he heard the innocent laugh of his daughter, Lily. Lily was 6 years old, bright eyes, golden hair, and a smile that could melt any storm. She was the only person who made Alexander's hardened exterior soften. She was the reason he still believed in love after his wife had passed. To him, Lily wasn't just his child. She was his anchor, his reminder that life wasn't only about profit and power. She was the thread of innocence weaving through his busy, complicated world, and he treasured her above everything. That afternoon, the sun painted the sky with golden warmth. Alexander cleared his schedule, something he rarely did. He closed his laptop, ignored his buzzing phone, and told his assistant, "Cancel everything. Today belongs to my daughter." Those words shocked his staff. The man who never missed a deal was choosing to miss one for family. But Alexander didn't care. He had promised Lily a day in the park, and he was a man who kept his word. He pulled up to the park in his black limousine. The driver opened the door, but Alexander stepped out first. He extended his hand for Lily, guiding her with care. For once, he wasn't the CEO being escorted. He was just a dad, holding the tiny hand of his little girl. Lily's face lit up the moment she saw the wide playground. "Daddy, look! Swings!" she exclaimed. Her excitement was pure and contagious. Alexander smiled, something rare in the corporate world, but with her, smiles came easily. "Go ahead, sweetheart. Let's make today special." They walked past families, joggers, and children playing tag. People glanced at him, recognizing the powerful man from magazines. But Alexander ignored the stares. In that park, he wasn't Alexander Hart, the CEO. He was simply Lily's father. He pushed her gently on the swing. Each push brought out giggles that filled his soul. "Higher, Daddy! Higher!" Lily squealed. He laughed. "Not too high, Princess. Daddy's heart can't take it." The moment felt so simple, yet so priceless. After the swings, they wandered to the fountain. Lily tossed a coin into the water. "What did you wish for?" Alexander asked. She whispered, "That you won't be so busy anymore." The words pierced his heart. He knelt beside her, brushing her hair back. "I'm here now, Lily, and I promise I'll always try." Her little fingers wrapped around his larger hand. To her, that promise meant everything. To him, it was a vow he desperately wanted to keep. They bought ice cream from a street vendor. Lily's face quickly became a mess of chocolate smudges. Alexander chuckled and wiped her cheeks with a napkin. "You eat like a little monster," he teased. She grinned, showing her chocolate-stained teeth. "Then you're the daddy monster," she replied. He pretended to growl, making her laugh even harder. Those simple moments, so ordinary, meant the world to him. For once, he wasn't watching the stock market rise and fall. He was watching his daughter's joy bloom before him. They sat on a bench under the shade of a tall oak tree. Lily leaned against his arm, tired from running around. "Daddy, why don't you play with me more often?" she asked softly. Alexander's chest tightened. The truth was simple. He was always too busy, too buried in meetings, calls, and decisions. But how could he tell that to a 6-year-old? He looked down at her innocent face. "Because I'm silly, Lily. But I'll try to be better. She smiled sleepily. Promise? He kissed her forehead. Promise. The breeze rustled the leaves, carrying laughter from children nearby. For the first time in years, Alexander felt peace. Not the peace of a successful business deal, but the peace of being present in the moment. He realized how much he had missed, the way Lily's hair glowed under the sun, the way her laughter echoed like music, the way her tiny hand felt safe in his. He silently vowed never to take this for granted again. As the sun began to dip lower, the golden light danced across the park. Alexander watched Lily chase butterflies across the grass. She was carefree, full of wonder. He marveled at how something so small could bring him so much joy. To the world, he was a millionaire CEO, but here he was just a father in awe of his daughter's innocence. His heart swelled with pride, not in wealth, not in success, but in the little girl who reminded him of what truly mattered. She was his miracle. He thought about how fast time was passing. One day, she would grow up. She would no longer want to hold his hand at the park. She would no longer ask him to push her on the swings. That thought broke him a little. He wanted to freeze time, to hold on to this moment forever, to capture her innocence before the world changed her. He promised himself he would protect her from everything he could. She was the only legacy that truly mattered to him. As Lily ran back to him, holding a small daisy, she placed it in his hand. "This is for you, Daddy, because you're the best." His throat tightened, and tears threatened his eyes. He crouched down and hugged her tightly. "No, sweetheart, you're the best gift I ever got." For that moment, nothing else existed. Not the company, not the nay, not the empire he had built. Only Lily, the light of his life, his pride, his heart. The daisy Lily had given him was still in Alexander's hand. Its white petals rested gently between his strong fingers. He kept staring at it, realizing how fragile yet beautiful it was. Just like his daughter. Fragile, innocent, yet the most beautiful part of his life. He tucked the flower carefully into his jacket pocket, a silent treasure. Lily's giggles pulled him back to the moment. She had spotted a butterfly fluttering near the fountain. Its wings shimmered in orange and black patterns. Lily's eyes widened with wonder, her laughter ringing like a bell. She darted forward, her little shoes tapping against the stone path. "Daddy, look, it's so pretty," she shouted, her voice echoing. Alexander smiled and nodded, his gaze following her. She chased the butterfly in circles, arms outstretched like tiny wings. She spun and twirled, her hair glowing like sunlight. Other parents glanced at her, smiling at her pure joy. The fountain gurgled softly behind her. The sun reflected off the water, scattering golden sparks into the air. The park was alive with sounds of children playing, birds singing, and laughter everywhere. For a moment, Alexander felt grateful he had come. He felt proud that he had chosen her over his business today. Then came the sound he dreaded, a vibration in his pocket, his phone buzzing. The sound cut through the peaceful moment like a sharp blade. Alexander's heart sank. He knew what it meant. His board of directors rarely called unless it was urgent. He hesitated, his hand hovering over the phone. Should he ignore it? Could he really risk missing something critical for the company that had taken years of his life to build? But then he looked at Lily again, spinning in joy. He exhaled slowly, trying to resist. His finger brushed against the phone, but synced, update. "Not now," he whispered to himself. But the phone buzzed again, more insistent this time. His chest tightened. He knew it was urgent. Against his better judgment, Alexander pulled out the phone. The screen lit up with the name of his board chairman. His brows furrowed. If the chairman was calling directly, it meant a decision couldn't wait. He stepped aside, just a few feet from the bench. "Just 1 minute," he muttered under his breath. His voice carried guilt even as he unlocked the screen. The phone felt heavier than ever in his hand. He placed a finger on his temple, preparing to listen. His attention shifted completely to the glowing screen. Meanwhile, Lily was still chasing the butterfly. It flitted farther, dancing toward the open pathway. She followed it with unwavering focus, her laughter filling the air. Her tiny feet padded over the grass, closer and closer to the edge. She didn't notice the road beyond the trees. Alexander raised the phone to his ear. The chairman's voice crackled urgently. "Mr. Hart, we need your approval immediately. The investors are waiting." Alexander pinched the bridge of his nose. He knew he should end the call. "I'll only need a second," he whispered, trying to balance the worlds. His eyes flickered toward the fountain where Lily had been. He expected to see her spinning and laughing, but she wasn't there anymore. A small chill raced down his spine. He shifted his head, still clutching the phone. His gaze swept across the grass. He caught a glimpse of her pink dress fluttering beyond the fountain. She was moving farther away, following her butterfly. His heart jolted, but he didn't react immediately. "Mr. Hart, are you there?" the voice demanded. Alexander clenched his jaw. "Yes, I'm here," he answered, though distracted. His eyes narrowed, trying to keep track of Lily. He told himself she was fine, just playing. Lily's laughter carried faintly, but it was growing distant. She skipped past a patch of daisies, eyes fixed on the fluttering wings. The butterfly soared higher, pulling her toward the open street. Her little arms reached up, determined to catch it. She didn't see the cars moving in the distance. Alexander's hand tightened around the phone. A bead of sweat formed on his forehead. He was trying to focus on the urgent voices talking numbers and risks. But his heart was thumping in unease. Something didn't feel right. He turned slightly, one step back toward the fountain. His eyes scanned again for Lily. The spot where she had been standing was now empty. The butterflies were gone, and so was his daughter. A sharp stab of panic twisted inside him. He lowered the phone halfway from his ear. "Lily?" he called softly. No answer. His pulse quickened. He called again, louder this time. "Lily!" The sound of his own voice echoed back at him. Parents nearby turned their heads briefly, but his daughter was nowhere in sight. He stepped forward quickly, scanning every corner. His chest tightened, breath becoming short. The chairman's voice still barked from the phone. "Mr. Hart, this decision cannot wait." Alexander finally yanked the phone away from his ear. For a brief moment, the entire business world meant nothing. His mind screamed with only one thought: find her. Lily, meanwhile, had crossed the grassy edge. Her shoes tapped against the curb of the road. The butterfly hovered just out of reach, pulling her further. She reached forward, giggling, unaware of the danger. Her small frame seemed even smaller against the wide street. A car engine roared in the distance. Tires hummed against asphalt, drawing closer. The sound mixed with her laughter, a chilling contrast. Her tiny feet edged dangerously close to the road. She stretched her hand out one last time. Back at the fountain, Alexander's heart pounded wildly. He dropped the phone completely. It clattered on the stone path. His eyes locked on the movement of her pink dress on the street. His breath caught in his throat. Terror clawed its way into his chest. "Lily!" he shouted, his voice breaking. His legs moved instinctively, propelling him forward. Each step felt like a lifetime as his eyes stayed fixed on her. In those seconds, the world slowed and dread consumed him. His little girl was on the edge of danger, and he was just a moment too late. The car's horn blared as it came speeding closer. Its tires screeched against the road, the sound cutting through the park. Lily froze, her tiny arms still reaching for the butterfly. Time seemed to hold its breath. Parents nearby gasped, covering their mouths in horror. But among them was one young woman, Emily. She had just been leaving the small grocery shop by the park, a paper bag filled with apples, bread, and milk clutched in her arms. She noticed the flash of pink near the road. Her eyes widened as she saw the little girl standing in harm's way. Emily didn't stop to think. She didn't wait for anyone else to move. Her instincts screamed louder than fear. She dropped her groceries to the ground. Apples rolled across the sidewalk, milk spilled, bread tore open. But none of that mattered. Her legs carried her forward in a desperate sprint. Her heart pounded so hard it echoed in her ears. Every second stretched into eternity. The car was closing in, faster, louder. Emily pushed past startled pedestrians. "Move!" she shouted, her voice sharp with urgency. Her shoes slapped against the pavement as she ran, her arms extended forward, reaching for the little girl. The world blurred around her, but her target was clear. Lily turned her head at the sound of footsteps. Her innocent eyes met Emily's determined ones. Fear flickered across her small face. Emily's voice broke through the chaos. "Hold on, sweetheart." The car horn blared again, closer now. Just as Lily teetered at the edge, Emily lunged, her arms wrapped tightly around the child's tiny body. She pulled with every ounce of strength she had. Momentum threw them both backward onto the sidewalk. Emily twisted her body, shielding Lily in her embrace. The car thundered past, missing them by mere inches. The force of the wind from it brushed against her cheek. Tires squealed as it disappeared down the road. Gasps and shouts erupted from the bystanders. Some rushed forward, disbelief etched on their faces. Emily lay on the cold concrete, her chest heaving. Lily clung to her, trembling in shock. Emily whispered softly, "You're safe now. I've got you." She stroked the child's hair, trying to steady her own racing heartbeat. Relief washed through her like a tidal wave. Her arms tightened protectively around Lily. She couldn't bear the thought of what almost happened. The adrenaline still surged violently in her veins. But beneath it all, gratitude filled her, grateful she had made it in time. Around her, the world began moving again. A woman nearby clapped a hand over her mouth, whispering, "She saved her." Another man muttered, "That was too close." The crowd's murmurs blended into a sea of disbelief and awe. Emily didn't care for their words. All she cared about was the child trembling against her chest. "Shh, it's okay, sweetheart," she soothed gently. Her voice was warm, calm, like a blanket against the storm. Lily's sobs softened, her little arms wrapping around Emily's neck. Emily rocked her gently, like a mother calming her own child. "You're safe, I promise." Emily's knees stung from the fall. A scrape on her elbow bled lightly, but she ignored it. Pain was nothing compared to the relief she felt. She glanced briefly at the road where the car had vanished. A shiver raced down her spine at the thought of what could have happened. She turned her attention fully back to Lily. "Were you chasing that butterfly?" Emily asked softly. Lily sniffled and nodded, her voice barely a whisper. "Yes." Emily smiled faintly despite the tension. "Butterflies are tricky, aren't they? But they're not worth risking your safety." Lily's small fingers gripped Emily's shirt tightly. "Thank you," she whispered through her tears. The words were fragile, but they pierced Emily's heart. She hugged the girl closer. "You don't need to thank me. I'm just glad I was close enough." People began gathering around them. Some offered Emily their hands, trying to help her up. She shook her head gently, still cradling Lily. "Just give her a minute," she said softly. Her priority was the child's calm, not her own comfort. The world around them seemed to fade. Emily felt a deep connection to the little girl she had just saved. It was as though fate had placed her there at that exact moment. She couldn't explain it, but she felt it. A sense of responsibility weighed on her heart. Lily's trembling began to ease. Her sobs turned into small hiccups. Emily wiped a tear from her cheek with her thumb. "There now, brave girl. You're okay." Lily buried her face in Emily's shoulder, clinging tighter. The sound of footsteps thundered toward them. A man's desperate voice cut through the air. "Lily! My God, Lily!" Emily turned her head toward the sound. She saw a tall man running, his face pale with terror. His eyes were locked on the child in her arms. He was powerful, dressed sharply, but right now he looked broken. The weight of fear was etched into every line of his face. Emily realized instantly this was her father. She braced herself for his arrival, holding the child protectively still. But for a brief moment before he reached them, Emily's gaze stayed on Lily. She stroked the little girl's hair again, whispering, "Daddy's here now." Lily lifted her head slowly, her tears drying. She turned to see the familiar figure rushing toward her. Relief flashed in her young eyes. Emily's own chest softened at the sight. She was glad, truly glad, that the little girl would be safe in her father's arms again. She could already feel the father's desperation radiating closer. She knew how much this child must mean to him. Her arms held Lily firmly one last time before she would let go. But in that fleeting instant, Emily whispered a prayer of thanks. Thanks that she had been at the right place. Thanks that she had been fast enough. Thanks that this child still had her life. Her eyes stung with emotion she hadn't expected to feel. Around them the crowd began to part as the man closed the distance. Emily kept her focus steady, making sure Lily felt secure until the last second. She whispered, "You're safe now, Angel. Nothing will hurt you." Her heart still raced, but her soul felt calm. Because in that moment, courage had been enough to save a life. Alexander's chest felt as if it were caving in. His breaths came sharp, uneven, desperate. The world around him blurred into nothing but the sight ahead. His little girl, clutched in the arms of a stranger, her small body trembling, her face streaked with tears. His phone slipped from his grip, clattering to the ground. He didn't even glance at it. The calls, the voices, the deals, none of it mattered anymore. His world was wrapped up in the terrified eyes of his daughter. He sprinted forward, his heart hammering in his chest. "Lily!" he cried, his voice raw with fear. His cry tore through the air like a wounded animal's howl. His daughter's head jerked toward him, eyes wide. She recognized the sound instantly. "Daddy!" she sobbed, her tiny arms reaching out. The crowd that had gathered seemed to fade away. Alexander's legs moved faster than they ever had. He reached them, dropping to his knees on the sidewalk, his arms opened wide, trembling with need. Emily gently released Lily into his embrace. The moment their bodies touched, Alexander clung to his daughter. He pressed her tightly against his chest. His tears spilled freely, wetting her hair. "Oh my God, Lily! Oh my God!" His voice cracked under the height of relief and terror. Lily buried her face into his neck. "Daddy, I was scared," she whimpered. Her tiny fingers dug into his shirt, refusing to let go. Alexander rocked her back and forth, whispering, "I'm here now. I'm here." But the guilt inside him only grew heavier. He had almost lost her. The thought sliced him deeper than any wound could. Because of him, because of one glance at a phone, she had come within inches of death. His chest tightened painfully. He closed his eyes, unable to shake the image of her near the road. His mind tormented him with what-ifs. What if the stranger hadn't been there? What if the car hadn't swerved? What if his daughter had been taken from him forever? He shuddered violently, clutching her even tighter. "I'm so sorry, baby," he whispered against her hair. The apology tumbled out like a confession. "Daddy should have been watching. I'll never forgive myself." Lily didn't understand the depth of his guilt. All she knew was that she felt safe again in his arms. She whispered, "Don't cry, Daddy." Her tiny hand reached up to touch his tear-stained cheek. Her innocence broke him all over again. He kissed her hand gently, his voice trembling. "I love you more than anything, more than my own life." Around them, the park was hushed. Parents held their children closer, shaken by what they had witnessed. Strangers exchanged glances, pity written in their eyes. But Alexander saw none of it. His focus was only on Lily, and on the crushing guilt in his soul. He tried to steady his breathing, but his chest still heaved. Every heartbeat reminded him of how close he had come to losing her. He pressed his forehead against hers, desperate to hold on to her warmth. "Never again," he vowed quietly. His words were as much a promise to himself as to her. Lily clung tighter, her sobs softening. "I thought the car was going to hit me," she whispered. Alexander's stomach twisted at her words. He pulled her closer, his throat burning. "I should have stopped it. I should have been there." He knew no apology would ever erase the truth. He had failed her for those seconds. Seconds that could have stolen everything from him. His mind replayed the sight of her pink dress near the road. The image carved itself into his memory, never to leave. He looked at her fragile frame in his arms. She was shaking less now, soothed by his embrace, but the guilt only grew heavier. It pressed down on him like a mountain. His pride as a father crumbled into dust. He thought about the daisy still tucked in his jacket, the small flower she had given him with so much love. What if that had been the last gift she ever gave? The idea tore through him like a blade. He couldn't bear the thought. "I don't deserve you," he whispered under his breath. But Lily only tightened her hug, unaware of his torment. Her love was pure, forgiving. She needed no explanations. To her, he was still Daddy, the one she trusted most. Alexander's eyes burned as more tears slipped free. His mind screamed at him for looking away, for choosing work in that moment. What was a company compared to his daughter's life? What was success compared to her smile? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. He swallowed hard, trying to steady his shaking hands. He rocked her slowly, as though the motion could erase the fear. "You're safe now, sweetheart," he murmured. But inside, he felt anything but safe. The guilt gnawed at his soul. He glanced briefly at the stranger who had saved her. Their eyes met for just a second. Gratitude swelled in his chest, but the words stuck in his throat. He looked away quickly, ashamed of himself. He couldn't face her, not yet. His whole body shook as he clutched Lily. "I almost lost you," he whispered again. The words were broken, fragile. He kissed her forehead again and again, desperate for reassurance. She sighed softly, her little arms refusing to let go. He realized how much she trusted him, even after everything. That trust cut him deeper than any blame. She didn't know his mistake had put her there. She didn't know how close she had come to being gone forever. But he knew, and that knowledge would haunt him. His heart was heavy, but his love for her surged stronger. Stronger than his guilt, stronger than his fear. He knew he could never undo what happened, but he could vow, here and now, to never let it repeat. He whispered a silent prayer, holding her tighter than ever. The sound of her small breaths against his chest slowly calmed him. His tears finally began to slow, though the ache remained. He rubbed her back gently, grounding himself in her presence. He had almost lost everything, and the guilt of that truth carved itself permanently into his heart. Alexander finally found the strength to look up. His eyes met the woman who had risked everything to save Lily. She stood quietly, brushing dirt from her dress, her breathing still unsteady. A bag of groceries lay scattered on the pavement, forgotten in the chaos. Yet her gaze wasn't on the mess, it was on Lily. Emily's expression softened as she saw the little girl safe in her father's arms. A small, tired smile curved on her lips. "She's safe now," she said gently, her voice carrying warmth. "That's all that matters." The simplicity of her words struck Alexander to his core. He opened his mouth to respond, but nothing came out. The words were trapped somewhere between gratitude and shame. His throat tightened. His lips trembled. How could he possibly thank someone for saving his child's life? No words felt worthy. He finally managed to whisper, "Thank you." His voice cracked with raw emotion, but the two words sounded painfully small compared to the weight of his gratitude. Emily simply shook her head. No thanks needed. Anyone would have done the same. Alexander knew that wasn't true. People froze. People hesitated. But she hadn't. She had thrown herself into danger without a second thought. He studied her face, seeing the calm strength hidden beneath her humble appearance. For the first time, he truly noticed her. She couldn't have been more than her late 20s. Strands of brown hair clung to her face from running. Her clothes were modest, plain, carrying faint signs of wear. She didn't look like someone who lived with abundance, yet her eyes radiated a quiet bravery that shamed his wealth. Alexander adjusted Lily in his arms, still holding her tightly. He cleared his throat, determined not to let this moment pass. "Please," he said, stepping closer. "I need to know your name." She hesitated, almost uncomfortable with the attention. After a moment, she answered softly, "Emily." Just one word, but it carried weight. It was the name of the stranger who had become his family's savior. He repeated it in his mind, trying to etch it into memory. Emily, the name he would never forget. "Emily," he murmured aloud, almost reverently. "I'll never be able to repay what you've done." She gave him another small smile, shaking her head. "You don't owe me anything," she said. "I only did what was right." But Alexander wasn't satisfied with that answer. His world had nearly collapsed, and this woman had held it together. He couldn't let her slip away into anonymity. "Please," he pressed gently, "tell me more. Who are you?" Emily's smile wavered. She glanced down, almost embarrassed by his insistence. "I'm just a teacher," she admitted softly. "I work at the community school nearby." There was no pride in her voice, only quiet honesty. She shifted uncomfortably under his gaze. Alexander frowned, sensing something more. "Just a teacher?" he repeated. She gave a small laugh, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Well, a teacher and a waitress on weekends, and sometimes I tutor." The list spilled out like a confession. His heart sank. She was clearly someone who carried more than her share of burdens. "You work all those jobs?" he asked softly. She nodded, brushing her hair behind her ear. "Life's expensive. Teaching doesn't cover much." For a moment, Alexander didn't know what to say. Here was a woman fighting every day just to make ends meet. And yet, without hesitation, she had risked her life for a stranger's child. He was stunned by the contrast. She had so little, yet she gave so much. "That's incredible," he said quietly. Emily shrugged lightly. "It's just life. Everyone's got their struggles." Her words were humble, but her strength shone through them. Alexander felt both admiration and shame. He glanced at Lily, who peeked shyly at Emily from the safety of his arms. "Is she okay?" Emily asked gently. Lily nodded slowly, her eyes wide but curious. "She likes butterflies," Alexander explained softly. Emily's lips curved into a real smile this time. "That's a lovely thing to like," she said warmly to Lily. The little girl managed a small smile back. Alexander felt his chest tighten at the simple kindness in Emily's tone. It wasn't just that she had saved Lily's life, it was the tenderness she carried in her presence. "Emily," he began again, struggling with his emotions. "You've done more for me than I can ever explain." She shook her head once more. "I don't need anything in return." But her eyes betrayed a quiet weariness, the kind that comes from years of sacrifice. Alexander noticed it. The exhaustion in her posture, the faint shadows under her eyes. She wasn't asking for help, but he could see she needed it. He respected her dignity too much to press further, but he made a silent decision. He would not forget her. Not today, not ever. The crowd around them began to disperse, the drama fading. Life in the park resumed, but for Alexander, time still felt suspended. His gaze lingered on Emily as she bent to gather her spilled groceries. He stepped forward quickly. "Please, let me help." She shook her head firmly. "No, it's fine. I've got it." She stacked the bruised fruit back into the torn pap. "A bag." Alexander winced at the sight. Even in her struggle, she tried to carry everything herself. Lily tugged at her father's collar, whispering, "She's nice, Daddy." Her innocent words pierced him with truth. Yes, Emily was more than nice. She was brave, selfless, and quietly extraordinary. And she deserved more than a passing thank you. "Emily," Alexander said softly, "you may not want thanks, but you have mine." She glanced at him, her smile faint but genuine. "Then that's enough," she replied. Her humility humbled him more than anything else could. He had met countless powerful people in his life, but none of them carried the strength she carried now. She had no wealth, no influence, no spotlight. Yet she had done something no board member, no business partner, no fortune could ever do. She had saved his world with nothing but courage. And Alexander knew in his heart he would never see kindness the same way again. As the park slowly returned to its quiet rhythm, Alexander remained still. His arms wrapped around Lily, his eyes lingering on Emily as she prepared to leave. Something inside him felt irreversibly altered. It wasn't just relief, it was awakening, the kind that shakes a man to his core. He thought about the towering glass office that usually consumed his days, the endless meetings, the contracts, the late nights. All of it seemed hollow compared to the tiny arms clinging to him now. What good was power if he couldn't protect his own child? What good was wealth if it nearly cost him what mattered most? That night, he didn't return to his office. The papers piled on his desk remained untouched. Instead, he carried Lily home, kissed her forehead, and sat beside her until she fell asleep. Her soft breathing was worth more than every fortune he had ever earned. He stayed longer than he ever had, simply watching her dream. In the stillness of the room, memories replayed in his mind. The screech of the car's tires, the sight of Lily in a stranger's arms, the look in Emily's eyes when she said, "She's safe now." Each moment was carved into him, impossible to erase. He felt ashamed, but also grateful. Ashamed of his distraction, but grateful for the second chance, grateful for the stranger who had given him back his daughter. That night he whispered a vow to himself, a vow to never let work steal him from fatherhood again. Days turned into weeks, and the vow held firm. The chauffeur found himself driving not to the office at dawn, but to the park. Lily laughed as she swung high, her father pushing her with steady hands. He cheered for her when she conquered the slide. He clapped when she caught butterflies with her tiny net. People began to notice the change. The once distant CEO was now often seen with a small girl on his shoulders. His business partners complained of his absence, but Alexander didn't care. For the first time, his priorities were exactly where they belonged. He no longer checked his phone every few minutes. Meetings could wait, emails could be answered later, but Lily's laughter? That was fleeting. He refused to miss another second of it. Yet through it all, his thoughts often drifted to Emily. He couldn't forget her face, her courage, her humility. He remembered how she had brushed off her own sacrifice as nothing. To him, it was everything. And so, he sought her out. It wasn't difficult to find her. Teachers in her community knew her well. She was the kind who stayed late to help children with homework, the kind who bought supplies with her own meager savings, the kind who gave more than she ever received. When Alexander first approached her, she looked surprised. "Mr. Hart," she said cautiously, recognizing him. He shook his head gently. "Just Alexander," he replied. He didn't want titles between them. He thanked her again, properly this time. Not with rushed words, but with sincerity. "You didn't insist. Just save Lily," he admitted. "You saved me from myself." Emily's eyes softened, though she said little. Their conversations grew from there. They spoke about life, about teaching, about Lily's favorite books. Emily laughed easily, though Alexander noticed the weight she carried. She never complained, but he saw the signs of struggle. He admired her strength even more for it. Slowly, a bond formed between them. Not of obligation, but of genuine respect. He invited her to join them at the park sometimes. Lily adored her presence, clinging to her hand as if she had known her forever. Their little trio felt natural, as though fate had stitched it together. Alexander began to see the world through Emily's eyes. He noticed things he had ignored before, children who had little, families who struggled. With her quiet influence, he found himself giving back more, funding schools, supporting teachers, not for publicity, but because it finally mattered. One evening, as the sun set behind the skyline, Alexander sat beside Emily on a park bench. Lily ran ahead, chasing the last of the day's butterflies. Alexander turned to Emily, his voice low. I used to think success meant money, buildings, power. He paused, watching Lily's hair glow in the sunlight. Now, he continued softly, I know success is this. His hand gestured toward his daughter's laughter. And meeting someone like you. Emily's cheeks flushed, but she didn't look away. For once, she let herself smile without restraint. Alexander breathed deeply, feeling lighter than he had in years. The guilt was still there, but it no longer consumed him. It had transformed into determination, to be better, to do better. He realized guilt had given him clarity, and gratitude had given him peace. Time passed, and his company adjusted to his new ways. He wasn't always the first in and last out anymore. But strangely, the business thrived even more. His presence as a father seemed to sharpen him as a leader. Balance made him stronger. His relationship with Lily blossomed like never before. They shared bedtime stories, weekend adventures, quiet talks. She no longer had a father who was absent. She had a father who was truly there. And that was worth more than any empire. As for Emily, she remained a constant in their lives, not because she had to, but because she wanted to. Their friendship deepened with each passing day. It was built on trust, gratitude, and something unspoken, something that didn't need to be named to be real. Alexander often wondered if she had been placed in his path for a reason, not just to save Lily, but to save him too. He believed now in the quiet miracles of life. Angels didn't always wear wings. Sometimes they wore modest dresses and carried grocery bags. As the months passed, Alexander's transformation became evident to all. He laughed more, worked less, and lived deeper. The cold walls of his mansion were warmed with Lily's joy, and Emily's presence brought a kind of peace he had never known. His life, once consumed by skyscrapers, was now rooted in love. One evening, as Lily fell asleep on his lap, Alexander whispered to himself, "This is what matters. This is all I need." His eyes drifted to the daisy she had once given him, now pressed in a frame. A reminder of innocence, of near loss, of second chances, and of how a single moment and a stranger's kindness had changed him forever.